righty. Welcome, guys. Matt Presti here. How you guys doing? Got a couple people on the chat. Juliana and Aquila. Welcome, guys. I just need to ask to make sure, since we are recording, that going forward, you guys can hear me. Does everything sound level? Very good. Excellente. So chicken soup for dinner. Chicken soup. You got to love that. It's turning cold in this part of the world, in the Midwest here. In the Ozarks, we're low of 35 last night. And yeah, soup for the soul, definitely a good thing. So I just want to basically do a test of the new system here, as well as take some questions. I'd like to also really try this Telegram platform out and see how this can work for tech talks, things like that. So I'm happy to bring on any of you who are listening, and you're more than welcome to jump in. It looks like you guys have the ability to speak, but I don't know that you do or not. So one of you would have to either jump in and just say something, say hello. Maybe Scott, if you're up for it. Might be able. Hey, there he is. All right. That thing works. Cool. How you doing, buddy?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
I'm better than great. Thank you.
Excellent.
We got a Kiwi on the line. Look out. The North Island, right?
Correct.
Awesome. Well, I thought of having you on. We had that little chat back and forth to discuss the natural person idea. And it looks like you guys are doing a lot of great stuff in New Zealand. I got a buddy on the South Island, and he's a really good guy. He actually is helping us out with some stuff that has to do with alt energy research, if you will. But very cool fella, and Kiwis are some smart guys. So tell us real quick, what part of the island are you from, and what are some of your interests?
So I'm based in Raglan on the west coast. It's about, if anyone knows where Auckland is, it's about an hour and a half south on the west coast. So here in Raglan, we've got in the surfing world, we're world famous for our the longest left-hander in the southern hemisphere. So we've got a very long wave.
Oh, very cool. Don't you have great whites too?
Yeah, they float around here too, but it's just don't have that fear there, and they shouldn't show up.
That's hope. Yeah, you gotta not have that fear, because that's for sure an invitation. Are you a surfer?
Yeah, surfer and kite surfer and all sorts of other water sports. What brought me to Raglan was the wind and the waves and the ocean. So it's a great place to be for those sports.
Beautiful. So how did you get into, tell us a little bit about the alternative, information movement, and especially considering the reclamation of one's natural birthship.
I guess, 3 years ago, with all that hoo-ha that went down, that initiated a lot of people to start, digging deeper about things. And then, being in Raglan, where I live, we've got quite a strong community of open-minded thinkers here. Beautiful place of arts and all sorts of other amazing people as well, and beautiful talent. And so, yes, a group of people got together and, were talking about all the things going on, and, their path led down learning about how the system works that we've been living under. And as I came along, I just started hearing about these birth certificates and what that was. So naturally, I became interested, because, I was seeking some truths myself to see what was going on. And then that went from one thing to another, and we ended up being amongst a group of people over in Hamilton, which is the nearest city, and learning from others who have been, through the system for the last 30, 40 years and have experienced it and been in and out of, time in the system. And it's all just kind of gone from there.
Wow, cool. Have you gone through the process yourself of the birth certificate reclamation?
So yes, with a group of us last year, we did a course with another fella who guided us through the process of writing our own affidavits to reclaim our living status. So we did that last year, and then sent them all off to the various authorities to declare that status. And of course, none of them responded. So then it became an unrebutted affidavit of truth. So from there onwards, we reclaimed our sovereignty. So it's a powerful tool to have if we ever need it.
Yeah, indeed. So what are some of the steps that you have to take initially that you could share, like, with the listeners?
Initially, like for me, the very first thing was just comprehending the whole scenario with the birth certificate and what that was, or what that is rather. And it's, understanding that, you then start to understand how this whole system that we've been living under has completely deluded us to who and what we are.
Mm-hmm. Would you say it's I would imagine New Zealand, like Australia, is again the British maritime law sort of model that is somewhat worldwide, especially in the court systems of Western nations?
Yes, yep. No, it's maritime law.
Mm-hmm.
So we
go ahead.
Yes, so then we've been learning about that, and learning about the law of the land and being living souls within that.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, well, welcome aboard, buddy. So
thank you.
What time is it right now? About 7 a.m. your time?
9:07 here.
Oh, 9:07. Okay. Are you guys actually ahead of the South Island time wise?
No, we're all on the same time.
Okay. Because usually, oh wait, no, it would be. I'm thinking Eastern time. When I talk to my buddy on the South Island, we usually talk on Eastern time, so it's always that would do it. Do you guys do daylight savings there?
Yes,
Set
we
your
do.
clocks forward and back. Do you? Okay.
Yep. No, we do. We started daylight savings it must have been about 3 to 4 weeks ago.
Okay. I'm actually going to look that up and see if we're doing it, because usually I thought we'd had it by now. 2023, November 5th. Okay. Yeah, it's yet to come up. So, all right. Well, so you've got quite a cool place in the heart of New Zealand there. You want to talk about your farming? I saw some pictures that you do a bit of the electro farming.
Yeah, electroculture.
Electroculture. There's the word. Yep.
Absolutely. So when I early last year, I was started taking a class of homeschool students, just teaching them electrical engineering, as I'm a electrician by trade for the last 15 odd years, and so with teaching these students electrical, it started firing up things in me to dig deeper with how what truly electricity is. Because these students were asking me these questions and I couldn't answer them. So I dug deeper, and that's when I started, finding out more about what electricity was. And then naturally I just ended up looking into electroculture because, I'm an avid gardener, and, I've always been in the garden from a young age, growing food and that kind of thing. And so I was led to electroculture and working in the garden with these wires. And of course got on the journey and figuring out what this was all about. And of course, it goes back to the early 1900s, and and it came to a time when all the research around electroculture just halted, and it just ended up being around the same time that all these other amazing practices around the globe just all of a sudden disappeared. So with electroculture, it's quite incredible, and some of the simplest things that we can do is literally just wind copper in a coil fashion, in a spiral, and put that in the ground, and get amazing results, and just helping bring that life force back into the ground, because there's so many deterrents for nature just to flourish. We're surrounded by so much electromagnetic smog, the chemicals that have been sprayed everywhere, and especially New Zealand being a farming nation, there's just sprays and chemicals everywhere. Honestly, like on a fine day, you could just see the airplanes are everywhere spraying stuff, and it's crazy. So getting amongst electroculture is an amazing thing, just to allow nature to flourish again.
Sure. Have you ever heard of Matt Roski?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I dropped a link in there. He's one of the go-to guys. I actually heard a podcast with him on the Alpha Vedic with Dr. Barry Lando and Mike Winter, and they were talking with him about the electroculture. He seems to be what I'd term an expert in the field. Now, how would this work relate to, say, Victor Schauberger?
So where I'm at where I'm starting to understand how energy flows, it flows in a rotational pattern, and with Victor Schauberger's work, I haven't gone dug too deep into his work, but from what I know, it's all about the vortex and implosion. So electroculture, I believe, for me, where I'm going with it is, it's about creating that field for energy to naturally flow into the earth.
Excellent. Very cool. Now, Schauberger, like Russell, knew that basically the electric wave was, as Russell said, all direction is curved, all motion is spiral. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
In other words, there's no straight lines of flow in nature. I mean,
yes,
even
absolutely.
Even in a power line, you've got twisted pairs, or in phone or data line, and you've also got, that just shows that the twisted pairing or the spiral winding, even in large electric power cables, always travels better if it's spiraled. So.
Absolutely, and being a Sparky, we're all the wires, we're installing copious amounts of them. And one thing I always used to fascinate me is, we'd have these electric cables we'll be pulling through just domestic homes, and then you'd have the data cables. They all had these twisted pairs, and I used to wonder back in my younger apprentice days, why is that? And when we were in the electrician college, you could say, they didn't really teach us about why that is so. All they said is that having the wires twisted stops interference from other data cables and electric cables and that kind of thing. And
there's more to the story. Higher transmission speeds.
Yes.
Right. It's like your 2.4 gigahertz versus 5G. And 5G is just an incredibly much more compressed spiral waveform, which is much larger, huger amounts of data. But the risk that comes with that is you've got three kinds of 5G: low, medium, and then high. High is the stuff you don't want to be around. The mid to lower frequency is not as harmful. Not saying it isn't harmful at all, but definitely less than a high transmission 5G would be. And the higher it is, the actual less it's able to travel through, like trees and buildings. So that's why they have to put these 5G stations on each corner within a city, because they can't obviously travel through walls, concrete very well, just like your wireless router can't. And for people that don't know, you can actually shut your 5G off on your wireless router if you know how to get into the IP settings. Usually that's detailed on the bottom of your cable modem or the bottom of your Wi-Fi router itself, whether it be installed by the phone company, cable company, DSL, etc. You should be able to go look at that, enter admin as the password, and then you can go in through entering 192.1, etc. that HTTP address, and then get into your settings, and from there you can alter the turn the 5G off. Even 2.4G, I've known a lot of people who like to shut their internet off at night because they say they sleep better, which is, something that's each and everyone's prerogative. Unfortunately, if you live in an apartment building or complex, then you're probably at a disadvantage because you'll probably look at your phone and you'll see 100 different networks all broadcasting. So in that sense, you're kind of SOL. But so yeah, 15 years as an electrician, obviously. Let's talk about power. Now, I know Kiwis are very independent, at least the ones I know, and some of the Australians as well. You've probably heard of the Joe Cell, heard of Joe Booker from Australia, who worked on the magneto motor, I believe it was called, that his car was actually levitating. Do you ever hear about that man? And do you know anything about, or just any comments about the alternative energy movement in general?
Absolutely. I've been the last 2 years just gone balls deep with learning about that, because once I started learning that electricity wasn't just the so-called flow of electrons in a cable, that blew my mind. And then all of a sudden, boom, I found that everything that I've been working with throughout my life just came together. Like, I used to spend a lot of time playing with old valve radios, or as you guys call them, tube radios. And, at the young age of about 8 to 10 years old, I was playing with electricity and electrocuting myself all the time and didn't know that's what I was doing. And
right.
The weird thing is that it didn't scare me off or anything. I actually kind of enjoyed it. And yes, it was so I just lost my train of thought there.
That's okay. Any major influences? Obviously, you probably, through my work, have heard of Walter Russell, I'm assuming. So that did bring you over to this side of the fence, you could say, to look at this information.
Absolutely, yes, for sure. So, another
what was
thing
your introduction to him? How were you introduced? Just curious to Dr. Russell's work.
So, with just my journey with understanding what electricity was, I came to Tesla, of course, and then from Tesla I was guided to Walter. And I remember seeing Walter's name for the first time early last year, and just continued on my path. And then his name popped up again in different avenues where I was looking, and then the University of Science and Philosophy popped up, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Had a look, and then went away, continued on my journey, and then it popped up again. And then it was about that third or fourth time I saw his name in the University of Science and Philosophy. I was like, okay, I need to start digging a bit deeper and learning more about this guy. And yeah, that's how I got started.
Oh, very good. Very good. What book have you read that's your favorite of his so far?
So I had a friend purchase the Universal One for me about 3 months ago. And so I'm about halfway through that, and I was probably manifesting that for about 12 months, just going, so many times I went online to go buy the Universal One, but something was just like, not yet. And
right.
It appeared one day at my doorstep, and so that's how far I am. And that's, of course, when I went after getting stuck into the Universal One, I went back to your guys' website and then found the scholarship, and I went from there. It all just went boom, 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 just like that.
Very cool. Very cool.
But
I want to share. Go ahead and finish.
Just going back to the alternative energy, one thing that just really clicked into place earlier this year, I had a bit of a flashback to a memory. I spent 3 years working with plasma power sources for engineers and programming CNC machines and wiring them. Plasma profile cutters, and working with those units for 3 years, I did all the servicing on them, installing new units, and knowing all the mechanics about and electronics of how these plasma sources work. I was doing this work for that time and didn't actually realize the power of plasma. And within my journey this year, I've now realized, it's all about, plasma. And one of the things I had while I was working at this job with these plasma power sources, I had a moment where, one of them, the contactor that turns the unit on, blew up in front of me, and I had 3 electric phases come together and flash over. And
wow.
What happened with that, it threw me backwards, and I went into another realm. I've been told it's called the in-between, and it was just like a dark place where I was just floating pretty much. And
how many volts would you say?
So it was 415 volts between phases.
Ooh.
And
You're
our
lucky you
workshop
live,
was
bro.
backed. What's that, sorry?
A lot of people don't survive that if it grabs them.
Yeah, it's our workshop was backed by 200 amp fuses on each phase as well.
Holy crap.
So I got it was incredible. Like I was just in that black space, and I didn't come back until my boss came and put his hand on my back, and that pulled me back. And it's I suffered no serious burns. All I had was a couple of little bits of copper that had landed on me, and I did get arc eye, so my retina's got slightly burnt. So I just had to wear eye patches for probably 48 hours, and that was about it.
Wow, bro, you live to tell about it.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. Ever since that time there, that's when I was about 23 at that time, and that's when I was sitting going, I'm into these water sports, and where I was currently living, I couldn't go and do that when I wanted to do that. And that started getting me thinking even more about there's something not quite right with the balance between work and life in this world, what's going on, and started questioning everything from that point. I already had the seeds planted in me. My speech at high school was about 9/11, and I was asking questions, and I just remember the room being silent afterwards, and I was just asking questions. So the seeds were there, and then this flash over that I had in front of me just boosted all that, and away it went.
Wow. Yeah, I was in the Electricians Union, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 1, which is the first Brotherhood of Electrical Workers in the United States. I think it was 1890 something, 2 or somewhere around there. But I would hear from these journeymen, linemen, and others on, big, usually the 440 installs or, 200 amp, things like that, stories of guys getting grabbed by this electricity. And the only way to get them off was to knock them off, to run, full speed into them and just, literally knock into them and knock them off of because that's the danger of electricity, especially as it's generated in our current capacity is, was it Edison that shocked elephants with AC, right? To show the inferiority of Tesla's approach, but nonetheless, Tesla beat him out, thank goodness, because it would take a massively immense amount of copper to be able to do DC stations on all the street corners to power homes, which would have likely led to only the very rich being able to afford power at that point. But with the step up and step down of alternating current, that certainly made it possible to get electricity even out to the rural areas of the Americas and other places in Europe as well. So you guys are on 50 cycle, is that right? 50 hertz?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Just 60 hertz. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, very interesting. If anybody has any questions for Scott, we could try taking a question. Scott, if you want to stay on with me, I would like to see if somebody can open their microphone and either ask a general question or ask a question of Scott in particular. Absolutely. So we can see if we can do multiple people talking at one time. So even if you just want to chime in and say hello, how you doing? Guardian, Laura, Juliana, Aquila, any of you? Scott, your mic is still open. Assuming that we can have multiple people talking, it may be that we can only have 2. So, yeah, you just muted, Scott. So that's, if somebody can open up now, we'll
Hey, can you
try
hear
and.
me?
Hi, Laura.
Hi, I'm driving, but I'm doing my part.
Awesome. Awesome. Did
I
you try to get in just a minute ago when I said anybody got a question?
No, I just had to get to the light to stop before I was fiddling with my phone while I was driving.
I
So
got you.
as soon as I pressed the button, it came on live right on.
Very cool. Scott, can you also talk? See if we can have more than one.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. All right.
Cool.
Well, Laura,
Yeah.
do you have a question?
Well, it's kind of more of a comment. It's
Sure.
so interesting you guys are talking about this. I've had a really interesting relationship with electricity, as does my mother and my two daughters. And, just affecting electricity, flickering, different things. And I had someone in the car with me one night, and, I had street lights go out a lot, and I thought it was maybe the headlights in my car, but it happened when I was walking my dog as well. But I said to a passenger in my car, I said, I don't know what it is or where it comes from, but I know it's a gift from God. And as soon as I said it, a street light went out as we were driving.
Whoa.
So
Whoa.
I know. I mean, all my life, my mother and my two daughters, we just have this really interesting, if I could just figure out how to point my finger,
I can relate to
That's
that.
really
Yeah.
interesting.
So
I have a
don't know.
friend.
Go ahead.
So I have a friend who, whenever he holds a cell phone, his or somebody else's, it goes haywire.
Interesting.
It'll shut off. It'll restart. It won't work. There are people I've heard and actually read about that because of their field, I guess, something with their field, they actually affect electronic devices, often causing them to either go haywire, shut off, or
Right.
that. Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm on a Facebook group called Sliders. I joined like 6 years ago, and I don't really get on Facebook, but apparently there's quite a few people, and there's been all these different theories about, exposure to a virus sometime in your life, all these different weirdo things. But I even
Right.
had a car that I had it about 2 years, but I'd go out and it wouldn't start, and I would have it towed, and there was never anything wrong with it. It happened 3 different times. And
Right. Wow.
they were like, dude, there's nothing wrong with this car. And I'm like, okay. But anyway, I just didn't know if you guys were familiar, if you've had any experience or know what it could be. I do see a biofield tuning lady, and, I see her once every other month after seeing Chance, Garten talk about it on Interverse. And she's cleared out a lot of stuff, but it hasn't enhanced or, it hasn't affected it either way. So that was it. I was like, electricity. I got something to say. So anyway.
Well, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, it is a phenomenon. I've definitely heard. Again, I've seen a friend of mine who he actually moved back to Texas, but he would touch anything, even like coins. He would make a static charge on like a coin of metal, and put it in your hand, and you'd get a discharge. The strangest thing, but that could be something to do with biofield. I mean, certainly we're all electrical beings in an electric universe, and so
I've had some interesting experiences as well with electricity and as far as appliances go. I had a client a couple of years ago. She couldn't get her dishwasher going. Like, it had not been working for like 3 months. It just wouldn't work. And she tried so many things. And, I had even guided her over the phone about just doing different practices to try and get it to go. Anyway, one day I just show up to her house. I opened the dishwasher. It made a sound. I turned it on, and away it went, and it worked for 3 months after that. And she got down on the ground when it started working and just bowed down to me. I was like, no, stop, don't do that. Yeah, this dishwasher went on for 3 months. It was incredible. And just recently I went into a shop in my village, and one of the lights weren't working, and I literally just touched it. It was a fluorescent lamp with the old school choke in them. Just touched it, and away it went.
Wow.
Yeah, I go through phases where I'll turn on light switches and pop bulbs. I mean, not pop them, but they'll, stop. They'll do that little flash thing, and I'll have to replace them. But it's like I go through phases. It'll happen kind of frequently, and then it won't happen for a long time. So same with my kids. So I don't know. It's just fascinating. The whole thing is so fascinating, and I have noticed at different times. Seems like emotions, intense emotions can also affect it. But, the last year or two, it's been a lot less frequent, and I've been a lot more sort of steady Eddie in my, my emotions and my level of peace. So I don't know. That's just food for thought. But I'm gonna go back to mute and focus on driving and keep listening. Thank you, Matt, for doing this.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for taking part. And you might pay attention to like when during the times of year it happens and around full moons, new moons, things like that. Those, pattern recognitions, maybe if it's around an equinox or a solstice, those might be times, because you never know if we need a like electric warrior to help, take out some of these New World Order bad guys. It'd be nice to point your finger and exact some divine justice.
Absolutely. I'm gonna start sharpening my fingertips, and I do electroculture in my little raised beds at my house too.
Very cool.
And I think it helps. I don't know. I think my tromboncino squash, which are these long neck big green squash, they really took off this year, and so I'm all about electroculture. But I'm going to mute now and keep listening, and thanks to both you guys.
Awesome, Laura. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, indeed.
Very cool. Scott, thoughts?
Absolutely. It's amazing to hear that from another being, having those experiences, because I've always wondered about that, and I've had multiple times, like with, circuit boards blowing up when I've been working on them and going, why did that just happen? And then other things start working that have never worked before. And, always been playing with these old radios and other electric stuff, and just, it just starts working, and I just can't explain it. And just hearing Laura say that, and talk of her experiences, it's just confirmed to me again, that our electric field, has such a huge influence with these things around us. And that experience of, you're saying about a friend with, computers and phones going haywire. I've had an experience recently with, not so much with my own field, but just having, one of those plasma balls, science toys next to my laptop, and, working away on my laptop going, why is this thing behaving so slow and doing some weird things? And I was like, oh, hang on, it's the plasma ball. So I moved it away, turned it off, and the computer went back to normal. And so that got me thinking, with this electric field that these plasma balls are putting out, I believe that there is a similarity with our field and these plasma balls and what they're putting out. So it's like, this all makes sense now.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I wonder too what, if it's certain foods, it could be certain locations on the planet, because, there are the ley line phenomena. There's, definitely, if you look at USGS topographical color charts of the United States, and actually they have a worldwide photography system that is like a heat signature. It's basically looking at various parts of the world and measuring its auric or electric color spectrum. And so, for instance, like a mountain, on one side you'll have more blues, on top you'll have a yellow, and on the other side you'll have more reds. And it's very much in line with like the Russell red and blue spectrum of division, with the center point being yellow and then white at the very center of that. So that's an interesting phenomena that, definitely, if you look at perhaps location as well, not only times of the year or, equinoxes, solstices, full moons, new moons, etc., but, you know, what is the content of the water? You know, there's a lot of questions that one could ask that might help to identify that phenomena.
That's awesome. Have you got a, can you forward a link or something so I can check that out? Because that's...
Yeah, let me see if I can't find it. USGS.
I've been spending a bit of time lately looking at a map from this website that you know, weather forecasters get their data from for cyclones, and it's the total precipitable water map of the Earth, and just watching how this water content is moving around the globe is incredible to see. And it's, you know, just with what you've just said now too, it's like, wow, that would be incredible to observe and see as well.
Exactly. You know, I'm not seeing it. I'll keep looking, but I might have to drop a link into the chat at some point after a while. But yeah, oh wait, hang on. Sections and patterns. Recommended, suggested.
Hey, I'll just chime in and say that I'm in a northwest sort of suburb, about 25 miles northwest of Atlanta. And I've only drank spring water since 1994, so there's that.
Wow. I was wondering about the water connection.
Yeah, I've only,
Very interesting.
And I mean, I'm a little bit of a, I'm Evian right now, but I have a hydrogen water bottle coming, so I'm going to try to delve into the hydrogen, and it's got a candle attachment, but I'm not all into Brown's gas yet, but I am going to check out the hydrogen water and see what's what. We'll see. I don't know.
Very cool. Right.
I'm always into new stuff, but yeah, there's that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'd like to also invite anyone else that's on the call here. If you'd like to chime in, just say hello real quick or ask a question, by all means. You can also type. Anyone that's not in the invitation area to speak can also type in a question in the Matt Presti chat room. But I'll just give you guys a quick update too on some things that are happening. If you follow my work, you'll also know that I posted a link previously. Christopher Gardner, who was a mutual friend of Chance Garton from Springfield, the Interverse podcast man, good friend. He paid a visit to us with his lovely family this Saturday and gave me an in-person interview in my studio. That's due to drop this coming Monday. And the University of Science and Philosophy, Walter Russell Foundation, found it in their heart to give his listeners 20% off any order that occurs through philosophy.org. And that begins next Monday. So you can shop philosophy.org/store, look over some books, maybe throw them into the shopping cart, save that page back, and then come Monday or Tuesday. In fact, it might start as early as November 1st. But so for the whole month of November, if you enter that code, all caps, TOPHER20, you'll save 20% at checkout for any of the Russell books or booklets at philosophy.org. So take advantage of that, guys. Makes great Christmas presents. If you're more into the philosophy, I recommend you check out The Secret of Light, The Message of the Divine Iliad, Leo's book, God Will Work With You, But Not For You. If you're more into the science, definitely check out The Atomic Suicide. There's also a science set, The Secret of Light, A New Concept of the Universe, and The Universal One, all come as a package. Now, the home study course for $250, I recommend everybody get that because it's going to go up eventually, the price of printing and the costs associated with it and the shipping on such a large course. Unfortunately, the university does not offer that. Actually, they do offer it in an ebook through Amazon. So it's called the e-course, which you can find, but philosophy.org, just click on enroll. It'll take you to the 3rd edition home study course. That is something I highly recommend everybody get on your shelf. It's really incredible knowledge And for the price, you can't beat it. I've said in past interviews, I would have paid $10,000 for it. And I've gotten a lot of students and interactions with people out of university for many decades, in fact, say that they had hoped that that would be what they were learning when they went to university. So it's really a course unlike any. Compared to a Course in Miracles, it's like 5,000 Course in Miracles put together in terms of actual useful knowledge. It's in no way, shape, or form New Age, as you would put it. I would say it's practical spirituality and practical knowledge for everyday use. And so, yeah, Topher 20, guys, for the whole month of October, philosophy.org/store. Anybody else want to jump in and say hello while we got Scott on the line? We got Guardian, Laura, Juliana, Aquila listening. Feel free to jump in. Scott, what's the weather like in New Zealand currently?
So interesting, actually, us. We've had pretty much 12 months of terrible weather. We only seem to get 1 or 2 days in a row that are nice, or, you know, we occasionally have a week of fine weather, then it's just back to this blanket of cloud that just sits over us and never seems to really dissipate. It hasn't been great, which is odd. So it's
rain, a lot of rain, more or less.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. A lot of rain. We have, you know, these random, very intense dumpings of rain that only last, you know, a minute or two, which is just unusual. And the raindrops are just enormous. It's just the weirdest thing that we had that comes to mind at the moment. Beginning of last year, we had the storm come through that had, it was unusual. The day that this happened, we're actually down in town with our signs, just trying to, you know, alert people to the bigger picture of what's going on. And as we're holding our signs in town, a storm started approaching. And anyway, on my way home, it went from being just a low wind to this intense wind where, you know, trees were flying sideways. And it was crazy. This super intense wind only lasted half an hour. And then following on from that storm, there was no rain and only condensation, you could say, overnight. And so after about 2 weeks, I had a friend alert me to the fact that all the trees on their property were burnt, facing where the wind came from. And, you know, they were like, this ain't wind burn, because, you know, we've been here 30 years and we've had far more intense storms as far as wind goes, and it hasn't affected the leaves like this at this time of year. And it's turned out to be that all the softwood trees got hurt by this wind and got burnt. And one thing I noticed on my avocado tree after a couple of weeks with no rain is that this white powder formed on the edge of the leaves. I kept some of the leaves and put them in a little bag, and I still haven't had it tested yet, but I do have a friend that works at a lab that said he'll test it for me, so I should do that. But yeah, I just, you know, this white stuff, whatever that was, I don't know. And like I say, the storm was just, it was so weird. It's just not normal, because I've been, you know, ever since a young child, I've always been fascinated by tornadoes, and, you know, would always look over in America and on TV and see these tornadoes, and was, you know, I loved meteorology and always observed. And this has just been odd. And yeah, like I say, this weather over the last 12 months of this continuous sunless weather has just been, it's just weird.
So what are your thoughts on the DEW? I mean, what we saw with Acapulco recently, and under the 12-hour mark, tropical storm becomes a Cat 5 with sustained 1 hour long, 200 mile per hour winds, destroying a city of 600,000 people, where they happened to hold the Anarchapulco event that I was actually going to speak at in February, along with Yerasimos and Sophie and Alex Zek and a few other folks. We're going to be quite a cool lineup of people, in fact. I've heard varying things about, you know, the reasons why this happened. again, there's these anomalies, and anomalies are what are left over when you apply a bad theory. So typically, if you have a theory that explains something, you don't have these anomalies. And just using it was a natural tropical storm that became a raging Cat 5 in less than a certain time, which has never happened, which makes that anomalous. So what are your thoughts on that? And of course, in Hawaii, we saw that as well. It seems that a lot of people are talking about the 15-minute city model as being the reason for these things happening, and that it's all, sort of the Great Reset in action. They're playing gods using weather warfare against us so that the BlackRocks and Vanguards can come in and then buy up all the property for pennies and then rebuild their smart grid 15-minute cities. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. Now, with, learning more about how radio works, I started realizing, and just having a natural fascination with nature and how it works, i.e. the tornadoes. Once again, my favorite movie was, Twister from 1999, and just seeing those tornadoes. And, I've been, wondering what is a storm? Why does nature create these storms, and what is it? And so where I'm at the moment, and with taking in a bit of my early stages of learning about Walter's work, is that, we live in a universe of, that seeks balance. So a storm, I believe, is trying to balance out a imbalance in nature. So with these storms that are created, how could you do that? How could you manufacture a storm? Well, you create an imbalance, an energy imbalance. So it's a tropical cyclone. It's absorbing all this heat from the oceans and then dispersing that heat energy. So how could we manufacture that? And that's where I'm at with, potentially using microwave radiation. The resonant frequency of water is 2.45 gigahertz, operating frequency of a microwave oven. So if we could direct, that frequency of energy to a particular spot, we're going to warm up moisture in the air and create an imbalance. And then nature's going to try and balance that out by creating this severe storm. So that's what makes me wonder with that latest thing in Mexico is, did they inject a whole lot of energy into that particular spot? And so nature's then come in and trying to balance that out by creating this severe storm all of a sudden.
That's an excellent way to view it, because that's exactly what you would do, is create the imbalance so that nature has to fill that void or that inequality very quickly. And that's what, that's the basic model of the DO weapon system, is that you're just like in your body. If you're hit with one of these directly, it can cause severe pain, loss of the ability to contain bowels and things of that nature. They have these weapons that they tested in the Iraq war theater, and then began to use them for crowd control some years later. It's a very interesting thing to contemplate, that mankind is a very advanced being in some regards, but yet very animal-like in his. In fact, I don't want to discriminate or insult animals, because for the most part, they're higher than humans. Dr. Russell would say man is still a primate, hasn't even reached the barbaric stage yet. But nonetheless, we see these great technological inventions being used for more or less population control. And I've said this on previous interviews, but if anybody has any doubts as to what the agenda is, if you know that the main overarching agenda of all of the things that this, New World Order is up to, if you understand that it's depopulation, then everything they do makes sense. That's that's where you have to begin. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to figure out why these rituals, why this, why the, DW, what is it? Is it against this population or that one? Why did the U.S. government fund the Nazi Azov regime in Ukraine while simultaneously funding Jews in Israel? Aren't Nazis and Jews diametrically opposed? Yet we're funding both sides of this kind of conflict. I mean, once you start to figure things out and you take the depopulation into the equation, then it all begins to make sense. What are your thoughts on that, Scott? It's a tough one, too, for a lot of people, because we don't want to think that there's actually that kind of evil in the world from the minds of men. But one of the harder things to realize, too, is that, you don't need to excuse the behavior of these people and shun the responsible party by pointing to something we cannot either arrest or apprehend, which would be this idea of demonic possession, for instance, or interdimensional entities. I just don't buy into that myself. The David Icke's or Alex Joneses harp on that a lot. But to me, it's like we're losing the chance to where we could actually apprehend and take these actual human beings that are doing some of this stuff and hold them accountable and responsible for their actions, instead of thinking it's just some interdimensional force, controlling these people, or the royal bloodlines, as it were. And it's not to say that there isn't that possibility, but I just want to see justice and people be held to account, like for the 7 million dead from the COVID shot and things of that nature. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting just with this, as you mentioned about these demonic entities and everything. And that's, I guess, a paradigm shift that I've had of recently, just with reading Walter's work. And, the creator is, it's all light. There's all good. And, man creates the evil himself. And, I reflect back into an experience I had beginning of last year as well. And actually my auntie was staying at my house, at my home this one evening. And in the morning, she says to me, "Who were you talking to? We were screaming to last night." I said, "Oh, what?" And I had this flashback to this dream that I had, and I was being asphyxiated and held down. There was these attacks that I've had all my life, and with this particular evening, and please excuse my language, but I told it to fuck off, and I said it very, very, very loudly and repetitively. And at that point, I just remember seeing this white light, and it went away, and I've never, ever had that ever since. And things have changed since then. So, I've always, since then, I've always kind of thought that, there's these demonic entities out there. But then with what I've read from Walter's work recently, I'm going, okay, well, if we've created this evil, then how has this been instilled into our brains? And that's where in comes radio and television. Once they had those inventions out into the public, they had humanity, at its grip, because how do you condition and program a human being is through sound and light. So these these so-called demonic entities literally could be, like you say, they're just created by these other, humans that are just wanting to control,
That's a great point, because there was recently a video on X that I came across, and probably others have as well. It's been on multiple different platforms, but it's a actual live experiment. I believe it was in a college class where this professor actually used a device to implant a voice into the students' heads in the other room, or something along that line. And I didn't even watch the video, but I read the description, and I knew instantly that, he's basically saying this is how the government or intelligence agencies can actually use this technology to put a voice into someone's head. And then the next thing you know, they're out shooting up a school, or, and it's a conditioning thing that takes place over time. But absolutely, with the invention of TV and radio, the nefarious controllers in the human race who have long desired total power, who have set up these League of Nations, which failed after World War I. You always look at their causes and their effects and the fruits of what their labors are, and that reveals to you who these people are. A critical analysis of this information is absolutely necessary if you're going to stand any chance of having a defense against it. And it's a quote Joe Rafiti put up by Michael Tsarian recently, and I'll just read it, but it sparked 2 days of conversation. No human being who is in their center can be hypnotized. That's what needs to be remembered. And then Michael Tsarian says, no human being who is in their center, who is being guided, who is close to their intuition, who is a sharp critical apparatus, who has got a sharp sense of judgment, can ever be manipulated. And so that's our defense against it, is to have that critical apparatus, that sharp sense of judgment. And you do so by reading the greats. You do so by comprehending and contemplating and apprehending new knowledge. This isn't a war of sit on the sidelines and see who wins. The war is really to make ourselves into the most critical apparatus that a human mind can be, as a form of spiritual armor in a very real spiritual war setting. But I think the idea too that these people are apprehendable and they can be brought to justice. Justice is something that people have to seek to hold those to account, and that takes a very unified populace to do that. So again, we see these intentional divide and conquer strategies, whereas somebody wrote recently in a comment on X as well, let's conquer and unite. Or unite and conquer instead of divide and conquer, and that's there's two ways this thing can go. But ultimately, we need to see more whistleblowers. We need to see more people come to the forefront. I'm doing my part here with the podcast and with the Tech Talks, of which this is the first of many to come. I'll probably do this across multiple platforms simultaneously at some point, but I do want to have these little, just for the chat room here on Telegram. I like a lot of you folks that attend this chat on a daily basis. The things you have to offer, the insight, it's all really good, and it's a positive thing. And I think we all learn a lot from the interactions. So thanks to all of you. And as far as holding these people accountable, Scott, what are your recommendations? What do you think humanity has to do really to get to the point where we can begin to see some justice enacted?
The big thing that, what comes to mind for me right now, and I read of recently, is that be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think that's, if anyone wants to make any change, that is the change that needs to be made. And you can't make any more outward change unless you do that inner work. And going on from that it's community for me.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Strong community. So,
and what are some of the things you've done, like with a community building network where you live? What are some of the things you can give tips to people if they want to sort of do the same thing to help them out?
So what we've got going here in Raglan, and how I came on board is I ended up at an impromptu hold up of the motorway south of Auckland. And we're trying to head north to Waitangi to go to this gathering, because that's where the constitution, you could say, for New Zealand was written back in the 1800s. So we tried to get up there and we got blocked by the COVID police because we had zones, districts we weren't allowed into. And so we got blocked and ended up in this, blocking the motorway for 24 hours. And within our local group, they saw that. And, I got asked on board, and, what do I do? And for me, it was, I enjoyed, learning how things work, and being an engineer with electricity and radio was my thing. And so I dug deeper with that and got my radio operator's license, and hold a small group and have taught people how to use radios for in an emergency with no power, just whatever we can use.
Are you ham radio app by any chance?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I know 2 or 3 guys in the county here that are ham app licensed. Very cool stuff.
So that's how I got on board with that little group. And then within that group, we've got other little divisions. Like we've got a community garden that has the foundations ready to go. So when people are ready to start inputting into that, that's ready to go. We've got a health group, which it's a collective of people in the health sector. Again, just got some foundations there. We have a monthly soup night in the community for like-minded people just to come together and we talk about various things. We're going to be screening a documentary that's been released very soon called The River of Lies. So we just, and we held twice a year now. We're up to our second one. We hold a health expo for people to come and attend, and just various other little things like that, just to kind of create that community. And one thing I know is that some of the other group members have been, they worry about no one participating in, say, the community garden. But the thing is, I tell them not to worry, because when the time comes, when people really, get into times of desperation, they will come in and get amongst that garden. So, I say to them, we've got the foundations. The foundations are there. The people will come when it's ready, when it's time.
Very cool. I've got the riveroflies.co.nz website up on the screen. If all of you would like to take a look at that, and people who watch this video back, take some notes. You can always say hi to Scott and Laura and others that are in the group who joined us on the call. And I hope to get the ladies on one of these days, Juliana and Aquila and others. They always got a lot of good things, good comments they leave in the chat here. Very informative. One from Laura says they put their plans in stone on the now destroyed guide stones. 500 million worldwide is the goal for the maximum number of people left on the planet. And then Juliana says, divide and rule, the politician cries. Unite and lead is watchword of the wise. And that is Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Laura says, more souls awake now than ever before, which is hopeful. Organizing the awake populace en masse for justice is a task that will be a supernatural spiritual miracle. I believe this will happen. So do I. So do I, dear Laura.
Same.
That's why we're stepping up our game, upgrading the studio here. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who donated too. That was really helpful for me to get to the point where I can now run music in the background, which actually sounded pretty good. One of the ladies said earlier, so that's really cool. I'm going to go ahead and start winding things down, but Scott, why don't you give a little bit of, if you want to share, what you're up to, how people can get in touch with you. Do you have a website, any of that stuff, a book, anything on the way that you'd like to share for those listening now and those who will listen in the future?
Absolutely.
Oh, Aquila. Real quick, Aquila says, Matt, I'm a man, by the way. Oh, my God. Sorry. That's beautiful. Well, you're a great man, okay, Aquila. Awesome. It's hard to tell. I mean, you don't know these days on a chat room who's who, but I appreciate the clarification, because I certainly don't want to send any disrespect anybody's way. But to all of you, thank you again. And just share anything that, you'd like to, that, what you have coming up. And I'm glad you were able to take part in this Tech Talk, Scott. I appreciate you.
I appreciate the work you're doing, Matt. And at this stage, if anyone wants to ask me any questions, just on your chat page at this stage, because, I've been sitting hiding away for the last 6 years, navigating. So I'm only just starting to kind of put myself out there now. So any questions, please just pop them up on your chat. And I want to leave you with some pictures of a particular antenna that I found in my research that's in Australia. So me being an engineer, and I just love to learn how things truly work. Getting my radio operator's license, I saw a photo in the Ham Shack in Hamilton of this particular antenna. And I went on a journey to try and find this antenna. And these photos that I'm about to send to the chat group is what I found. I'll leave you with those two for you guys to all have a look at. It's a very interesting shape. Another person I just want to pop in there as well. If anyone's heard of the name of the guy called Bruce Cathy, he's a New Zealander. He passed away in 2013. Nothing nefarious, I don't think. But his work, he was an air pilot during the 60s and 70s. And he saw a lot of things up in the sky. So that set him on his journey. And through his math, he discovered the world grid. And his latest book in his series is called The Bridge to Infinity. So if anyone can ever find that book, it's a great book to read. It's very hard to find these days, but they are out there. So it's the Bridge to Infinity.
The Bridge to Infinity. Maybe you could drop a link into the chat and share that with everyone.
Yeah, I'll
That'd
check
be
it
great.
out. Cool.
All righty. Well, yeah. Topher Gardner again interviewed me here at the house. That interview should drop on Monday. You've got this code here, folks. If you want to order any Russell books or booklets, enter Topher20, all caps, at checkout, and you'll save 20%. I believe it starts the 1st of November. At least it will start when I drop that interview for sure. Just depends when they get things racked up on their end at philosophy.org. A great organization. My daughter works there. She's just a light, helping to keep the Russell legacy going and secure and preserved and protected. So you guys know my work. I actually helped get that legacy back out onto the world stage, decorating a museum with 64 tons of art and sculpture. You can check out my page on YouTube for the rebirth of the Russell legacy video, which is about a half-hour video on that whole incredible piece of work that had to occur to get that all out onto the world stage. So again, I want to say thanks to everybody. Thank you, Scott, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
And so with that, folks, I'm going to say adieu. It's been nice to join you for this Monday afternoon. And I hope you guys enjoy the platform, that the Tech Talk platform that is going to be more and more busy as I get into things. And my next guest coming up should be out by this weekend is Etienne de la Boetie Squared. He's the author of Government, the Biggest Scam in History. So look for that to come out and drop prior to the weekend. So with that, I'm going to say tutu, everyone, and thanks for joining us. And let me know, guys, what you think of this episode. It is the first of many to come, hopefully, on the Tech Talk, which is sort of a side show podcast to the main Exploration of Consciousness podcast. Guys, talk to you soon. Thank you.